All right. Welcome in to another Salesforce Simplified webinar. I am Derek Cassese, joined here by Josiah. We're going to go ahead and get started. And you are here for from reactive to proactive. We're going to talk about Salesforce upgrades and all the good things that come with getting these upgrades 3 times a year. First and foremost, I want to say thank you to those that took the time out of their day this morning or wherever you may be joining from to listen to us and get this dialogue going. And maybe you're watching the replay. Thank you for that as well. And real quick, I'm going to do agenda. We're going to do some introductions in a second. We're going to talk about the upgrade schedule, talking about sandbox preparation. What do you need to do to make sure that you have the setup that you need? We'll dig into a little bit about how to handle the release notes. There's a lot of resources that are available to you, and then we'll do Q&A. Feel free to throw questions in the chat if you have them. So without further ado, again, my name's Derek Cassese, and I'm the VP of Modern Apps here at XenTegra. I came over last August, having been a Salesforce SE/developer for about 5+ years. Prior to that, I was a Citrix SE, and then worked at University of North Carolina. So I've been kind of the customer, the vendor, and now the partner. So I have some interesting points of view on all this stuff. But I'm joined also by today by Josiah. You want to introduce yourself, man?
Yeah, thanks, Derek. I'm excited. So I'm actually the director of sales at Computers for Community. This is XenTegra's nonprofit group. So I've actually gotten a unique experience of, like, we have our own Salesforce instance, and we've kind of been a small startup and gone through the experience of, launching a new Salesforce instance, getting that set up and running, and all the joys of that. So, have some experience on the larger side, and then now getting to do it again from a kind of startup experience. So that's been unique.
Yeah. A lot of moving pieces, right?
Yep. fast moving pieces.
Yeah. Cool deal. Yeah. So you'll notice on the slide, the picture of the tower in San Francisco. I took that picture when I was out there a couple of years ago. And if you're ever out in San Francisco for either Dreamforce or an event or anything, I encourage you to go over and check that building out. It's pretty amazing. And so much so that I figured I'd throw some of this stuff in there just for those that are on here. This is from the top floor. There's like a lookout. That's Alcatraz right there. You get some pretty crazy shots. You can see like the windows. You get like a whole panoramic view. And then again, I threw Dreamforce in here to remind me to mention a couple things before we dig into the content. And one of which is that what we're doing right now, this enablement. I also do a podcast with Andy, is, the VAR 2.0 concept that is XenTegra. And what we try to do is be more than just the transactional partner. We want to be kind of there to help our customers succeed with what they're doing. And we entered the Salesforce ecosystem last year. So we have the ability to do advisory services. We can augment, we can do like admin as a service, what have you. And we are doing the same thing for the nonprofits, which is pretty amazing. And we're doing that through Computers for Community. Same quality work, same engineering, but just, obviously a much reduced rate for nonprofits, because we believe that they need to get the best, right? So that they can further their missions. And it's, it's an important thing. So just wanted to throw that on there. It's pretty cool stuff. I love the Salesforce culture and the ecosystem, and we are going to dive in. And it was pretty timely that I got this email this morning. And it basically is telling me that summer 24 is going to be here in about a month. Now, I know that I've seen these now. When I was in Salesforce, right, I didn't have to worry about a lot of the upgrade stuff, because I had a million orgs and they were always upgraded and whatnot. But in the real world, we do have to worry about this because we're running our business on these platforms. And the days of, going over to the data center, using your key code to get in and upgrading a server and then making sure all the clients are updated are gone, because this literally is just like a 5-minute downtime window, which still blows my mind, right? It's like, all right, 5 minutes done. We've upgraded you. And now you have all this new stuff. And whether you're one person with one license of Sales Cloud or a huge company with 5,000 seats, you're going to get the same code. You're going to get the same software, features, etc., based on your licensing, obviously. But what we're going to talk about is that there are some things that you can do to get in front of these releases so that you don't get yourself into a situation where something has been changed or upgraded that impacts you in a negative way or surprises your users. Like, wait, why is this here? What is this new thing? I mean, Josiah, right? We're creatures of habit, right? So we're so used to where everything is. And then all of a sudden, if you change the UI or if you move a button from the top to the bottom, it's like chaos sometimes, right?
I just migrated everything from Gmail over to Outlook, and the tools are all the same. It's the same stuff. I'm sending emails. Like, it's not terribly complicated for me on a day-to-day, but it feels crippling.
Yeah.
Everything's in a different place.
Yeah.
Just basic things.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a big deal. Derek, can I throw in real quick?
Yeah.
Touch on for me just a couple dumb questions. Is every Salesforce org auto updated?
Yeah. So there are certain updates that are automatically enabled, and then
Yep.
there are updates that you have as an admin to do a couple things to enable them, right? But all of the instances are, yes, upgraded. So like, for example, you're not going to find somebody that's still sitting on Winter 19,
Right.
right? Like, because this is a multi-tenant architecture, right? And
Absolutely.
so,
No, I just want to kind of set the
yeah,
stage for this. So everyone gets updated.
yep,
How much time is there between sandbox to you're going to get updated?
yep. We'll get into that. That's a
Okay.
perfect segue. So let's do that. Let's go to the upgrade schedule. Thank you for the tee up there.
There you go.
So there are 3 upgrades a year. There's winter, spring, summer. And again, I said it's seamless. It's about 5 minutes of downtime. And you've probably seen it. You log into Salesforce and you see this like maintenance window thing that you probably just don't read and click. And it's basically saying that we're going to upgrade your instance. And something to keep in mind is that about 4 to 6 weeks prior to that, they'll upgrade some sandboxes. And we're going to talk about how you can get your hands on that and what to do. But the way that you can figure out when your instance is going to get upgraded is important, because then what you can do is go ahead and put those dates on your calendar, and when your production instances are going to get the latest release, right? So I'm going to walk through that process here and give an example. All right. And so Modern Apps, this is my partner. This is my org, kind of a test org. And what I need to do is figure out, all right, I need to figure out when is my production org going to get the new code. Okay. So what you want to do is go over to Trust. You go to trust.salesforce.com and you go to the status, right? So I'm at the status. So if I actually, there's home, security, and compliance. I want to go to status, and I'm going to type in Modern Apps. Okay. And that's basically my domain, right? If you've set up Salesforce, you can do the my domain and have it be unique to your business. And now I see that I'm on NA232. So I can click on this. Now this is my instance that I'm actually sitting on from the multi-tenant perspective, right? And it shows you the health, right? So this is another reason you would use this. If you're having like degraded performance, you can come here and see if something's going on. But what we're after is this maintenance tab. Okay. Now you'll notice that I immediately can see that on June 8th, I'm going to get the summer 24 major release. So I can go ahead. I know exactly when and at what time my production org is going to get upgraded. Okay. And you can actually see a year out. So I can see that winter is going to be on October 5th. and I can see that spring 25 is going to be February 8th. So you have plenty of lead time to get these things on your calendar and know that this is when all the new features of this release are going to drop to your instance. Okay. Now, also, you could do this. You could do this another way. And if you actually went to your settings and you went to your company and company information, right? You'll notice your instance is also listed right here. Okay. So if you didn't want to go do the search, which takes 2 seconds, whatever, but you can verify that you are looking at the right information. The instance is the multi-tenant instance that your org, the metadata, sits on. Does that make sense? All right. Any questions coming in yet?
Nothing yet.
Okay.
So Derek, you're telling me I should not do any big work at midnight on June 8th. That's the key takeaway.
Well, there's going to be a window where it's not accessible, right?
Yep.
So you won't be able to get in. But the nice thing about this, though, is that you can still work around the upgrades. You have to understand that there could be some changes that are involved in that upgrade, right? Makes sense. So yeah, so that's kind of part of that. And so if we go back, right now, we know we've got the instance, we know the dates, we marked them down. And what the rule of thumb is that you want to keep checking this, because obviously we're a year out now, but then as we get further down in this year, there's going to be more dates for the next few releases, and you can just keep adding that to your calendar and making sure that the dates are accurate and that you know when you're going to get upgraded to production. Okay. Now, this is production, and we're going to talk about the sandboxes in a second. But one also thing to note is that you can sign up for a pre-release org really early. It's not going to be like a sandbox that has your settings and stuff like that. It's just going to be a blank demo org, but it's going to have the new features in it. And what they do, they being the community, is a kind of an Easter egg hunt to see if you can find some of the new stuff, right? And you can get involved with the Trailblazer community that way. It's pretty cool. I think they've got like egg treasure hunter badges and things like that if you find stuff that's going to be in the release notes, because that's typically done. Folks do that before the release notes hit. Once the release notes hit, then you know everything that's in the update. All right. Sandbox. So this is what's important. And we're actually we just crossed over this cutoff. And so what you want to do, we all have access to sandboxes, whether it be dev, you have your partials or your full copies to do your development work, to do your testing, etc. And what Salesforce does is about 4 to 6 weeks prior to the dates we just saw, which is when all the production instances upgrade, they upgrade sandbox instances so that you get a window of which you can then test your environment, your configuration, your data on these new features, right? To make sure, and it does, you can test to make sure nothing breaks or that, nothing is causing issues, but it also gives admins the ability to understand what needs to be done to enable these features so that when those dates and the releases happen, it's very easy for them to turn them on. Okay. And so the way it works is that there's a cutoff date that is articulated via email, just like the one I showed in the beginning of this. It'll explain when the cutoff date is for the release you're on. The one we just had was May 9th, which was the cutoff date for summer 24. What that means is you need to refresh a sandbox prior to this cutoff date to be on a preview instance. And I put a screenshot in here to have it help a little bit. So in here, you'll see that I have a partial copy sandbox on a preview instance. Okay. And it's on USA 3030S. Now, what you can also do is you can check with this sandbox preview guide. And so, for example, so USA 30S. So what I'm going to do is come here. Okay. So this preview guide allows you to put in something along the lines of, let's do this. Let's go. NA232. I don't know if it's going to do the two. Let's see if it does the NAs. Yeah, so it's not going to do. So it's going to, all the CS ones are the ones that you want because those are where your sandboxes live. So if we come back to, where am I here? All right, if we come
So
back to
that NA232, that was our production org.
that's the production org, yeah. And so that's not, so this
Yep.
obviously sandbox, right? We need to actually have a sandbox. So give me a second to locate. Okay. So, okay, so I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm in my partial. So I went in. So what you would do is you go into your sandbox again, you go to your company information and grab this instance. So CS274, and then you drop that in. So CS274. Okay. And now what do you want to do? You want to upgrade so that you can test, or do you want to stay here? So what they do is when you click that, it'll tell you what you need to do. Okay. So no actions needed. I'm good. Or if I want to stay here, then what it says is I have to refresh after the cutoff date. Okay. So there's two branches, right? You can either say, no, because we're in the middle of a project, I don't want to change anything. I need to stay where I'm at, right? Like, let's say you're doing a big project with your full sandbox and you don't want all the new stuff early. Then what you would do is you would wait, the cutoff date would come, and then you'd refresh that and you would stay on the current version, right? So this is how you kind of make your decision on what you want from a sandbox perspective on what to do, at least. And it also shows you up here, which is nice. It says that this is what it currently is. And then this brings you over to that same maintenance window I showed you before on trust. We'll bring you over here for that instance. So if I click on that, you're going to see this instance now where my sandbox lives, but you're going to see that it's on summer 24 patch 4.3. If we look at this one, I'm on spring 24. So now you can see the difference, right? Because we passed that cutoff. So all the sandboxes are now on the summer. They've already been upgraded. Okay. And so once we do that, we now have our previews. And then I also did this just to show the day after. So on the 11th, I just created a quick dev, and you'll notice that since the cutoff had already happened, this is on a non-preview instance. So the dev sandbox I did prior on the 8th is a preview instance. The one I did after the cutoff is a non-preview. So that's the key takeaway, is that you refresh before the preview, the cutoff date, you're going to have the ability, you're going to get upgraded. If you refresh after, you're going to get reverted back to a non-preview instance. And that's important to remember too, is that if I were to refresh this sandbox, this one here, that's the Derek dev, that would be a non-preview if I refreshed it today. You'd lose all that capability.
So Derek, today on the 14th, can someone create a sandbox that is a preview of summer 24?
No, you can't. You can't create
that.
one today.
Okay.
You've missed the window. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So we're going to go through and put dates on our calendar for the 3 updates a year. We're going to expect that 4 to 6 weeks prior to that is when sandboxes are going to become available.
Yep.
Do we get specific dates around when that cutoff is far in advance?
So it's typically going to be about 4 to 6 weeks from the date that the productions roll out. The exact date for the cutoffs, I think, are communicated after. So like, we'll find out what the cutoff is for the next release after summer 24, after summer 24 is released.
Okay.
Right. So it's not like you don't see the actual cutoffs unless it's, you can probably just come out 4 to 6 weeks prior, but you're not going to get the actual cutoff date, I don't believe, until after summer 24 hits and they start focusing on spring.
So somewhere like 8 weeks before the production rollout.
Yeah.
I want to check when that sandbox preview is.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get that on my calendar and get my sandbox updated prior to cutoff.
Yep. And we're going to get into, there's a whole bunch of resources to help keep you in the loop on this stuff as well. All right. Release notes. So this is important. And I took this literally right out of one of the trails that Salesforce has, because I thought it was a really good statement. It said, if you're not reviewing each new release, then easy to implement features are going to lay dormant in your org and actually create feature debt, which is, you're not getting the most ROI and value out of Salesforce. I thought that's a really interesting statement, because what it means is if you don't take the time to actually look at what they're adding to this, you may not even be aware of some of this stuff. You're not using it. You're not getting the most value out of it, right? So you've got to at least take the time to look at what they're adding to the pieces that are important to you, right? And that's the key. Now, another thing you're going to want to do is designate a super user that help kind of vet the new features. Before we get, let me go and actually let's do this. So these are the release notes, okay? And there's a lot here. So what you can go online. So this is the PDF. All right. So what I like to do is I get the PDF just so I have it. But what you can do is go online and use the filters, right? And what the filters will allow you to do is filter all of the information that you need as far as what's important to you, whether it be Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, etc. So what I'm saying here is when you go to the release update page, you're going to want to go to summer 24. And then, for example, let's just say you're a CPQ customer. Okay, you want to go look and see what they've done in CPQ, or if anything, right? If you're a marketing cloud, what have they done in marketing cloud? And so it helps you kind of like navigate the pieces without getting overwhelmed. And what I mean by overwhelmed is now what we're going to do, I'm just going to show you a little bit, right, of what's in this single release. Okay, I'm scrolling. All this right here is in this single release. It's massive, right? Each one of these is a ton of work. And if you'll miss some really cool features if you don't just quickly skim. Now, this is kind of a little bit like an eye chart, right? So there's another tool that you can use, which is the release in a box. What this is this is the release in like a PowerPoint format. And I like this because it basically starts grouping things for me. And so they also give you this link, which is what I was hoping to get, right? And so this link would bring you log in, you basically get to the release. Let me go back here. You get to the release page that we're talking about. There are some demo videos, right? And so over here, so this is the release in the box. In here, there is the PDF that I just showed you. And then in here, there are videos of all the new features, which is pretty cool, right? So if you're interested in kind of seeing what some of this stuff is, they've broke it down into all the little subsections I talked about, and then basically put on the high level, right? So in Sales Cloud, they've got the high level features that are coming with this release: Service Cloud, Marketing Cloud, commerce, onward and onward, right? And it groups it so that it kind of brings the important pieces to the surface.
So I can find what's important to me and then dig deeper in that other document.
Exactly.
So you've got 35 pages here. The full release notes was like 600 pages.
It's really long.
It's a lot.
Yeah, this PDF, 636 pages.
636.
Yeah. And it goes in, I mean, there's a lot of detail, right? I mean, this is a lot of detail in here. So it's a reference, like that. The way that I do it is I'll look at there's a bunch of articles on the top things that are released. I'll look and skim that, but I'll always make sure I have this PDF, because then I'll just kind of skim it to see if anything jumps out. Because a lot of times what we're getting in these releases are things that are closing the gap on the product, where you may have had to code some workaround or use a third party that's kind of maybe doing what you want it to do. And so you want to catch those and make sure you understand, what they are. There's also, you'll notice that these enabled for users right? Enabled for administrators, require setup. There's different types of upgrades. There are some that are just there, right? And those are the ones you need to be aware of, because that's where, users come in and they see something new, right? And now where we're used to seeing something is different, and wait a minute, what's going on? So this gives admins the ability to get in front of that and know what's going to be actually turned on automatically, right? Okay, so release notes are important. Again, super users can help you kind of vet these, get somebody in there that wants to test, push the buttons. And then you want to communicate, exactly what's changing, right? Why, okay, hey, by the way, it used to take you this long to do something. You can do it a lot easier now because of this new feature, that type of stuff. Okay. And then I just showed you the release notes, and then they call it the RAB, the release in a box. All right. So there are a bunch of other resources too. What I wanted to show was, now that we've gone through all of this, right? And now I'm in my sandbox. And the first thing I always do is like, all right, is it really the new stuff? I want to see, is it really the new stuff? And so one of the things, I'm just going to pull out a couple pieces that I think are pretty cool with Summer. That I'm in here, you'll notice that there's a view summary button, right? That doesn't exist currently until you're upgraded. And when I click this, I get now a nice user summary, right? So this is all Summer 24 features that I can now get familiar with and comfortable, so that I'm ready when it comes and gets released. So we've got that. We've also got that capability with permission sets. So if I come into one of these, I can also do a summary on that. So this is really nice stuff, right? So this is what you're going to start doing. All the stuff we've talked about till right now is prep, so that you can do this. You can go in and start looking at what they've actually given you. Another huge one, in my opinion, is right here in Flow. Check for matching records. Okay. So in Flow, you've got the create records. We've used it all the time, but you've probably done a flow where it says duplicate record, error, mismatch. Like it won't create a record because it's a duplicate. And what happens to the flow at that point is it just ends, right? So what this allows me to do is now have a flow that'll actually have like a subset of records it needs to create. And if it happens to come across a match, it'll just skip it, right? Extremely powerful. This is a feature of Summer 24 that I've been wanting for a long time.
Yeah, it's big. I've heard a lot of chatter on that one with the Summer 24 update.
Yep. So that's big. So again, this allows me to play with this, and maybe I have some flows, right? That I want to see, hey, does this solve the problem? If it does, we're good to go. And then when we get upgraded, we can actually use that new feature set. So it's all the prep is so that you can actually do this, walk through and test and get comfortable with the updates, so that you can use it, right? You want to use this stuff as much as you can to get the most out of Salesforce. Now, if we come back here to this, okay. And then there is, whoops, my bad. I don't want to say thank you yet. I'm not done. There is a trail, and I'll bring it up over here. Okay, so prepare for Salesforce releases. So there are a handful of trails that you can go through that talk about very similar information that we're covering today. But again, give you, some badges and whatnot, advanced release strategies. And then in here, right, this is where they actually have trails on all the new features. So you could actually even get information from here, right? Notice they had the winter one still here. So there's a lot of resources for you to learn and understand the features and things like that are coming out. Again, the release in the box. Oh, and then the help. So the help, Salesforce help page is also pretty informative in kind of giving you information. So here's the summer release notes, get ready, like all this information. And again, this is where what I was talking about as far as okay, what are the release notes for what version? So we're here. This is how I create the PDF. This will create the PDF that we saw. And then over here is how you can actually do you can start filtering about what's important to you, right? Feature impact. You could say, hey, what's enabled for all users, right? And now you start seeing that. So you start playing with the dynamic release notes, and that's really important. All right. I don't think we have any questions, right? We have
No
anything that trickled
questions
in?
coming in yet? Nope.
Okay.
So Derek, I mean, this all makes sense. I get 4 weeks to look at this in the sandbox. I've got 4 weeks to really read 600 pages worth of release notes.
Yeah.
How do I get help around this? What is like, this is batching at its finest where, where's a partner that's done a lot of research on each release?
Yeah.
And what does that offer for me if I'm one admin trying to take care of an entire org?
Well, that's
I've got
another,
a full plate. I don't
yeah,
have
that's
a
another
week to
great tee up. I
spend
mean,
3 times a year.
yeah, it's a lot, right? And because the minute you're done with summer, you're going to go and get ready and prep for the next release, right? It's kind of a rinse repeat mentality. What I'm trying to show though is that there's a pattern, right? So
Yep.
we can get to the pattern. We see the pattern here with winter, spring, summer. So it's not gonna take all your time, but that's where your partner comes in and helps, right? So when I was a customer at UNCG, the most important partners I had were the ones that kind of took work off my plate, right?
Mhm.
Because I just couldn't keep up because I had so much going on. So I'm kind of continuing that mentality. So what we do for our customers is part of our advisory services is a release readiness, which is exactly what we're seeing here, but with the caveat that since we're a partner and we're providing advisory services, we're familiar with what's deployed, what they own, what's important to the customer. And then what we can do is basically sift through the updates and the features and say, okay, Mr. Customer, these are the things that are important to you. So these are the things you need to look at. We've already got your sandboxes ready for you. Kind of help the admins and the customers get prepped, all the things we just talked about. And we can keep track of the calendar. Your partner should be able to help you with that, right? That's the key. That's the type of stuff that I'd much rather, like if I'm sitting back as a customer, I'd much rather have a partner do that for me than have my resources spending time on that. I'd rather have them spend time on business type projects, right? Things that are impactful to the business. This is like maintenance. Like we got to keep this up and going. It's kind of a necessary thing that you have to do, but it's a great thing to offload to a partner, or maybe you do have a couple admins that kind of rotate so that everybody knows how to do it. But that's kind of how you stay in front of it is either put the stuff on your calendar if you're a one-man band, but I would say reach out to myself, XenTegra, Josiah. This is important for me because I know there are so many customers that don't have the time to do this, and don't use all the stuff that's in these updates, right? So there's, I've always heard the term technical debt from things that are like old and outdated that you want to get rid of, but feature debt was really interesting to me when I went through this content. And that's bad, right? I mean, I don't want to have feature debt in something that I'm paying for. I want to use the thing as much as I possibly can. And that's the goal for what we're trying to do here.
Yep. And it just makes sense because, I mean, you've got 600 pages of release notes. There's, a handful of pages that are going to apply to each customer. If each customer individual is trying to fully understand every release, that's a lot of man hours for every single customer. If, when a partner goes through and kind of holistically understands the bigger picture, and then can kind of apply that for dozens of clients as, this is the piece that applies to you. This is the piece that applies to you. It's a lot more efficiency there of that release readiness.
Yeah. And there could be projects that spawn out of like
Sure.
updates.
Yep.
With the, I'm thinking with the flow capabilities and things like that, maybe now there's a third party that like a bolt-on app or some custom code that you've written that's no longer needed, right? Because you want to reduce the custom code as much as possible in Salesforce. The reason being is that you get the benefit of all this stuff that they keep adding to what they own, the standard components, and then you get to reap the benefit of all the next upgrades. The custom code doesn't get upgraded. You own it forever, right? And then you start to get yourself in a corner where you can't upgrade because you've got so many things that are basically left behind, but they're all dependent, right? It's like building a card house.
And at
So,
some point, that was an admin 3 years ago, and nobody works
yeah.
here anymore that knows what happened. And
Yep.
yep, it's a
Yep.
card house.
Exactly. All right. So
One other
again,
question, Derek, maintenance releases, do we sandbox those?
what do you mean? Oh, so like the like the patches and stuff like that happen.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't believe they have a structure in place like what they do with the
With the
primary
summer
upgrades.
release. Yep.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't believe they do that. I'll have to investigate that a little further, but I believe that it's strictly for the primary releases that you're going to do that whole process.
And the patches we expect to always be pretty low impact.
Yeah. Yep. Now, I will say, just as a kind of parting gift, like there are some pieces that get up, like Data Cloud. There's a couple things that are getting upgraded on a different cadence, but like the purpose of this was the mainstream core applications and how they're getting upgraded 3 times a year, and how you handle that, right? Get in front of it. That way you're being proactive and you're not actually reacting to something that's happened when you had plenty of time to get ready for it.
Yep.
So, and that wraps it up. If we don't have any questions, again, thank you to all those that are watching or have watched. And again, we'll keep doing these webinars and keep getting the word out that we're here to help.
Thanks, Derek.
All right, man. I appreciate it. We'll do it again next time.
Talk soon.